Most people have never heard of Peshtigo, Wisconsin. It's a little town of less than 3,500 folks in the beautiful North Woods. The main attractions are camping, hiking, and fishing, and visiting the Peshtigo Fire Museum.
Peshtigo was ground zero for the deadliest fire in American history. Why haven't you heard of it? Well, Mrs. O'Leary's cow started a fire in Chicago on the same day and grabbed the headlines across the country. But Peshtigo was far, far worse.
Let's dig into this.
The weather had been warm in the fall of 1871, and the upper Midwest was in the middle of a long drought. It was dry and windy and warm. Peshtigo recorded a temperature of 70 degrees on October 8th.
And fires broke out in Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, and Indiana. The Michigan fires burned over 1.2 million acres and killed an estimated 500 people. The Great Chicago Fire killed about 300 folks, burned 17,450 structures, and caused an estimated 196 million in property loss. But none of these fires were as terrible as the Peshtigo fire.
Peshtigo was a lumber town of about 2,000 residents located north of Green Bay on the Peshtigo River. Carved out of the thick forest, it was the biggest settlement in the area with a boarding house, school, stores, and saloons. Farms and homes dotted the landscape. There was a good harbor and railroad tracks to load and haul wood and manufactured items south.
The largest employer in town was one of the biggest sawmills in the U.S., owned by the Peshtigo Company. They ran almost 100 saws at the mill and owned a machine shop and wood factory, producing shingles, clothespins, tubs, broom and tool handles, and pails. If it could be made from wood, they probably made it in Peshtigo.
The whole town of Peshtigo was made of wood. The buildings had wood shingle roofs. Corduroy roads, made of half logs placed next to each other, kept logging vehicles out of water and mud. The town sidewalks were raised planks, and some roads were covered with sawdust to keep them from getting muddy in the rain.
But there hadn't been any rain. It was the driest fall on record, and Peshtigo only had a trace of rain all summer. There were almost always fires in logging areas, and people were used to smoke in the air. Railroad engines and logging equipment would throw sparks. Logging involved setting fires to clear brush. Almost everyone watched for fires, and when one broke out, the town came together to put it out quickly.
On September 24th, fire broke out in the forest west of town. Sparks flew everywhere and ignited sawdust pile next to the Peshtigo Company factory. A bucket brigade from the river managed to douse the flames. 2 weeks later, the town wouldn't be so lucky.
Some would later say that October 8th had just been a strange day, and they had a feeling something bad was coming. It was windy enough to stir up dust and smoke, and towards evening many heard a strange rumbling. Some thought it was distant thunder, and maybe they would finally get a good rain. Men from the town got the water pumps used to put fires out and took them down by the river, just in case lightning struck.
By 10 p.m., they knew it wasn't thunder. The rumble became a loud roar, and a strange red glow could be seen west of town. Many said it sounded like a freight train was headed straight for them. Others said it sounded like a waterfall. The wind started to blow even harder.
Walls of fire exploded from the forest just minutes later. Fireballs flew at the town. This wasn't just a fire, it was a firestorm. Some who survived called it a fire hurricane. The men who were manning the water pumps knew they couldn't win this fight, and they ran. And suddenly everyone in town was running. Some towards the river, some towards open fields, or any place away from the fire.
The winds were so strong they had knocked people down and sparks flew everywhere, setting people's clothes and hair on fire. People couldn't breathe or keep their eyes open with all the cinders, ash, and dust flying. Folk that managed to get into cars or trucks crashed into each other. The winds destroyed buildings as they were hit, throwing burning debris everywhere. Terrified animals were trying to escape too. People described birds bursting into flames as they tried to fly away. It was chaos.
Many who ran to the river didn't want to get into the water. Most couldn't swim, and many of the animals in the area were already thrashing around trying to get away. Father Peter Pernin, a Catholic priest from Peshtigo, who would be one of the few survivors to publish his account of the fire, encouraged everyone to wade in up to their necks, thinking they would be safe. But he later said the very air itself was on fire, and everyone had to constantly throw water over themselves to keep their hair from bursting into flames. Some died from hypothermia in the cold water, others drowned, and others burned. Father Pernin estimated he spent over 5 hours in the river just trying to stay alive.
A few who didn't head for the river jumped into wells. 5 suffocated when the firestorm passed, consuming the oxygen in its path. Others ran into fields and tried to lay between rows. 75 people went into the boarding house to shelter. None of them survived.
There are reports that many who ran for the river died, some less than 10 feet from the shore, from breathing the superheated air. Some of the few who survived managed to lay in one of the shallow streams in the area and cover themselves in mud and dirt. Reportedly, not one cow, horse, chicken, or sheep survived.
In less than 2 hours, the entire town of Peshtigo was leveled, and the fire kept going.
Amazingly, the estimated 80-mile-per-hour winds would help the fire jump Green Bay and burn more than 16 towns in a 1 to 1.5 million acre path. Peshtigo was hit hardest, and the death toll there is estimated at somewhere between 800 and 1,500 people. The number of survivors is unknown, as many died soon after from burns and injuries.
The Peshtigo fire was blamed on the railroad clearing land, swamp gas from bogs, and meteors, but the most likely cause was a cold front moving towards the incredibly dry forests and prairies of the Midwest, creating high winds which spread fires already burning, creating the deadliest fire in American history.
A big thank you to Laura for suggesting this video, and thanks for watching.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hey, here's another Dragon Den video you might like.
And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button.
And you can hit the notification bell if you'd like to know when our videos come out.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.